Okay, this is the book of Tobit. Tobit is probably to be dated to the beginning of the 2nd century BC. The new emergence of individuality and personal religion and the fusion of elements from disparate sources, which it illustrates, are characteristic phenomena of the Hellenistic age, in the West as well as the East. The three great manuscripts of the great Greek Bible differ in their text of Tobit. The present translation follows tradition in presenting the text of the Vaticanus and the Alexandrinus, and the Sinaiticus can represent an older text. Now this is the book of Tobit. The story of Tobit, the son of Tobiel, the son of Haniel, the son of Aduel, the son of Gabal, of the stock of Athiel, of the tribe of Naphtali, who in the days of Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, was carried into captivity from Thishbe, which is to the south of Kadesh Naphtali in Galilee above Asher. I, Tobit, walked all the days of my life in the ways of truth and uprightness. I did many acts of charity for my brothers and my nation who were taken to the land of the Assyrians, to Nineveh with me. And when I was in my own country in the land of Israel, when I was young, the whole tribe of my forefather Naphtali revolted from the house in Jerusalem, which had been chosen over all the tribes of Israel for all the tribes to offer sacrifice in which the temple of the dwelling of the Most High had been dedicated and built for all ages. So all the tribes which had revolted with it would offer sacrifice to the heifer Baal. But I alone went many a time to Jerusalem for the festivals, as the scripture commands all Israel in an everlasting degree, taking with me the first fruits and the 10th parts of my crops and my first shearing, and I would give them to the priest, the sons of Aaron, at the altar. A 10th part of all my produce I would give to the sons of Levi, who officiated at Jerusalem. And another 10th I would sell and go and spend the proceeds in Jerusalem each year. And a third 10th I would give to those to whom it was fitting to give it, as Deborah, my grandmother, had instructed me. For I was left an orphan by my father. When I became a man, I married Hannah, who was of the stock of our family, and by her I had a son, Tobias. And when I was carried into captivity to Nineveh, all my brothers and relatives ate the food of the heathen. But I kept myself from eating it, because I remembered God with all my heart. And the Most High gave me favor and standing with Shalmaneser, and I became his buyer. And I made a journey to Media, and deposited 10 talents of silver with Gabiel, the brother of Gabris, in Regi in Media. But when Shalmaneser died, his son Sennacherib became king in his place. And the highways were unsafe, so that I could no longer travel to Media. In the times of Shalmaneser, I used to do many acts of charity for my brothers. I would give my bread to the hungry and my clothes to the naked. And if I saw one of my people dead and thrown down outside the wall of Nineveh, I would bury him. And Sennacherib, the king, killed anyone who had come as a fugitive from Judah. I buried them secretly, for he killed many in his anger, and their bodies were looked at by the king and could not be found. But one of the Ninevites went and informed the king about me, that I was burying them. And I hid, and when I learned that I was being sought for to be put to death, I was frightened and escaped. Then all my property was seized, and nothing was left me but my wife Hannah and my son Tobias. Before 50 days had passed, his 2 sons killed him and fled to the mountains of Ariat. And Esarhaddon, his son, became king in his place. He appointed Ahikor, my brother Haniel's son, to have charge of all the accounting of his kingdom and all its administration. And Achwar asked for me, and I went to Nineveh. And Ahigwar was cupbearer and keeper of the signet, and had charge of administration and of the accounts. Esarhaddon appointed him second to himself, and he was my nephew. When I reached my home, and my wife Hannah was restored to me, and Tobias my son, at the harvest festival, which is the feast of the 7 weeks, a good dinner was prepared for me, and I sat down to eat. And I saw the abundance of food, and said to my son, Go and bring any poor man of our brothers whom you can find, who remembers the Lord, and I will wait for you. And he came back and said, Father, one of our race has been strangled and thrown out in the bazaar. Then before I tasted anything, I rushed out and brought him into a room until the sun set. Then I returned and washed myself and ate my food in sadness. And I remembered the prophecy of Amos, as he said, Your feast will be turned into sorrow, and all your good cheer into lamentation. And I wept aloud. And when the sun was set, I went out and dug a grave and buried him. And my neighbors laughed at me and said, He is not yet afraid of being put to death for doing this. He ran away, and here he is burying the dead again. That same night, after I buried him, I returned, and as I was ceremonially defiled, I lay down to sleep by the wall of the courtyard with my face uncovered. And I did not know there were many sparrows in the wall above me. And as my eyes were opened, the sparrows dropping fell into my eyes and produced white films on them. And I went to the physicians, and they could not help me. But Achwar supported me for 2 years, until he went to Elamias. Then my wife, Hannah, found employment at women's work and sent the work back to its owners. And they paid her wages and gave her a kid besides. But when she came home to me, the kid began to bleat. And I said to her, Where did this kid come from? Is it stolen? Give it back to its owners, for we have no right to eat anything that is stolen. But she said to me, It was given me as a gift, in addition to my wages. But I would not believe her, and told her to give it back to its owners, and I blushed for her. Then she answered and said to me, And where are your charities? Where is your uprightness? Of course you know everything. Then I was grieved and wept and prayed sorrowfully, and said, Lord, you are upright, and all your doings and all your ways are mercy and truth, and you always judge truly and justly. Remember me and look upon me. Do not take vengeance on me for my sins and my ignorant acts, and for those of my forefathers, which they committed in your sight, for they disobeyed your commands. You have given up to pillage and captivity and death, and made us a proverb and a reproach among all the nations among whom we have been scattered. And now your judgments, which are many, are right in exacting from me for my sins and those of my forefathers, because we did not keep your commandments, for we have not walked uprightly before you. So now deal with me according to your pleasure. Command my spirit to be taken from me, so that I may be released and return to dust. For I had rather die than live, because I have had to listen to false reproaches